Why is that song special to you?
Even though it was so early, it was sort of a watershed moment for me personally. Because I was so young, I was probably 21 when we wrote it, and we had already written Mr. Brightside, we had already written Somebody Told Me, we had already written Smile Like You Mean It, and it was, we were on a high, and it was like there was something else that I wanted. I was already starting to look for something a little bit more than entertainment. I was a fan of U2, so to set the scene, I had just like really sunk my teeth in. In 2001, I saw them at the Thomas and Mack Center during the Vertigo tour, and you hear these elements of gospel, and you hear them refer to songs as prayers. And here I am, I'm a religious person, and I'm at this crossroads where I'm in this rock and roll band, and we're about to basically shoot to the stratosphere. And I had a little bit of trepidation about that. I didn't know how that was going to play out for me. And I think you can hear that searching in all these things that I've done. And so it's a really, some song I'm really proud of, and a really big moment for the band, I feel like.
I've heard two different stories about how you came up with the story that is reflected in the song. I'm not going to lay out the two different ones, but I'm curious to hear what the kernel was that sparked this and led you to create not only the music, but the lyrics.
It was definitely inspired by, I still haven't found what I'm looking for, a little bit in the theme, but definitely structurally with the chords and using gospel. That's where, it's funny, that's where I learned to apply the gospel progression, was from U2, and that's tied right back to somebody for sure like Daniel Lanois, who was able to bring those kind of textures and those kind of sensibilities into U2. It's just awesome, so awesome. And I've since got to work with him a little bit, and it's just been a beautiful thing, and he's a special person. And I don't even think we talked about that about all these things that I've done when I was with him. But it definitely would have, those seeds would have been planted from that, that inspiration from U2 again. Also, I was at the tail end of a romance with David Bowie. I was just heavily into David Bowie. Like, you go through your phases,
Yeah.
And Heathen had come out. So and so Heathen was like, one of the last great Bowie records, and it had a song on it called Slow Burn, and I just took the bass lines straight from Slow Burn and was able to sort of have this collision of these two powerhouses that I love, U2 and David Bowie, and it sort of just grew. It was very natural how it grew.
In that song, was it the music that came to you first, or lyrics came to you?
I think I wanted to feel some kind of affirmation that my decision to follow rock and roll was going to be okay. And so you can hear that questioning boy in the song, and that's a vulnerability that I don't think that you hear a lot, in rock and roll. It's become a really important part of my identity that I can fall back on when I'm writing songs now, and I'm really grateful for that.
In this particular song, do you remember where you were, where the kernel of it came to you?
Okay, yeah. So we used to have this is before cell phones. So this is so wild. It's funny, Nate Berg, how do you say his last name? I love him. Nate Bergatzi. He introduced himself at Saturday Night Live, and he said, "I'm from the 1900s." and it's funny. So I actually left on a voice machine of Dave Cooney, our guitar player. He had an old-fashioned voice recorder that you could leave your messages after the beep. And so he knew that half the time I was calling, I might be wanting to see what was going on, but the other half, it would be that I had an idea and I wanted to leave it on the tape. And so, again, another big influence at that time in my life was Lou Reed, and not so much Velvet Underground yet, but Lou Reed. And I wanted to have this kind of a spoken word thing. So the very first kernel of the song was the chorus, and it was the help me out. Yeah, you gotta help me out. And in my head, it was much cooler and much more spoken word.
It's pretty cool, Brandon.
Yeah, don't you put me on the back burner. You gotta help me out. And then the chorus was born, and it kind of wrote itself after that.
So those lyrics, you gotta help me out. What did that mean to you at the time? Because you were kind of alluding to this life that you've chosen and how you could square that with your faith.
Yeah, it's scary. I was scared. I was around people that thought you had to move to New York or Los Angeles to make it, and I stuck to my guns and stayed in Las Vegas. And then here I am faced with record labels pursuing us, and something was happening. It was so exciting, but I was a little bit scared. And it's a prayer, and it goes back to bands that introduced me to that form of writing. It's strange to say in the world that we live in right now, but I'm speaking to God in the chorus. I want to know that I'm going to be okay. I'm not a cookie cutter Mormon. I am obviously doing something that is not a typical career path. I'm choosing something very different, and I'm scared.
And so it sounds like that struggle was very cognizant with you, in your early days. Is it a constant struggle to deal with that, or no?
Yeah, it was definitely a tug of war. There's this perception that an authentic artist behaves a certain way. It's changed over the years. Obviously, at that time, I had a steady diet of Depeche Mode and Rolling Stones. Even though those are two different bands, I was just taking everything in. I was absorbing everything, and so there was this almost debauchery and hedonism. That was sort of that seemed to be the hallmark of what good rock and roll was about, And so I was conflicted and all of that. But it became a lot easier once I made the decision that I was just gonna, I'm an enigma. I'm just gonna embrace it. Life got easier.
Yeah, that's wonderful. It's really wonderful. And now I understand much more why this song, amongst all these other songs, is so special to you. Because it was this confessional, which is very, I think that's a beautiful thing for all your fans to understand and the audience to understand. So thank you for that.
Yeah.
So along those lines, I've got soul, but I'm not a soldier.
Yeah.
Explain how that ties into it, if at all.
Yeah, no, it does. In the church that I was raised in, when you're 19, if you're doing everything that you're supposed to be doing and you're a male, you should go on a mission. And that's where you actually leave and serve for 2 years. In another state, in another country. My brother had gone to Viña del Mar, Chile for 2 years, and it's not enforced, but it's a custom for sure. It's something that a lot of males do, and the females, quite a lot of females also go. And at that same time, I had bought Hunky Dory by David Bowie when I was 19.
Yeah.
and it sent me the other direction, baby. I fell in love with it. It was so funny because all of the bands that up until that point, that I had loved were all influenced by Bowie. And so I did it backwards. I got to Bowie last. So I went through New Order, Joy Division, Depeche Mode, The Smiths, everybody that was heavily influenced by him, Echo and the Bunnymen, you name it, that was my stuff. And so it was funny that I went to him last. But Hunky Dory was just a monumental record for me, and it was what really made me think, I want to do this. So I got soul, but I'm not a soldier. I feel like I can be a worthy person and not check every box that I'm supposed to check. And it's confessional, but it's also, I just want to know that that's right, that what I'm saying is true, please. And if I'm going to make 100,000 people sing it every night with me, and just let us know that it's okay, that we're not perfect, that kind of thing.
And that anthem is so spiritual, and like you said, you have the gospel choir, and it all comes in, and so it's a moment where everybody, it's almost like you lift your arms up to the heavens. So it is very spiritual. So once you had all that, how quickly did the song, the music, and the lyrics come together?
It came together fairly quickly. Everything seemed to in the beginning. You're full of so many ideas. All of that old adage of, you have your whole life to write your first album. It's true. It's just, you have so much to offer and so many ideas, and there's just seemed like we're unstoppable at that point. No fear yet, no fear of failure yet. And so it was born pretty quickly. We worked on it, we made changes here and there under the hood, in the studio, but it felt anthemic right away.
When you finished it and you were in the studio, did you know at that time that this was special?
I did. I felt like I did.
Yeah.
It's funny because we took it on the road. It just wasn't happening for a long time. And so we cut it we would be opening for bands, so we'd get 5 or 6 songs.
Yeah.
And it was on the list. And I remember taking it off for a few months because it just wasn't hitting like we wanted to. And then we started messing around with elongating that bridge and trying to get some interaction with the crowd. And then you saw it just slowly grow. Then the album came out. Then people got comfortable with it and familiar with it. Then we extended the bridge even more. And then I mean, it's still growing as a song. It still gets bigger and bigger. And we unlocked something in it just on this last tour. We changed a couple little things that we do live, and it's bigger than ever at 20 years on.